Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, and I say it's all right. Little darling, it's been a long, cold, lonely winter. Little darling, it feels like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, and I say it's all right. Little darling, the smiles returning to their faces. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been here. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, and I say it's all right. Little darling, I feel that ice is slowly melting. Little darling, it seems like years since it's been clear. Here comes the sun, here comes the sun, and I say it's all right. It's all right.
Good morning, St. Francis. Welcome to our Easter celebration here in the Celebration Center. It is good to have you here. You might have noticed that I am sitting in holy space here. This is where Lise Ote usually sits, and Diane Van Dusen stands right behind her shoulder. And we are going to honor those two and celebrate those two today because they have been singing with us for decades together, and it is great to be able to have them with us. But this week they are on their way up to Michigan, and they are moving up there this year. They've gone up there the last couple of years, but this year they're going up there to move, to stay, to be in that new home of theirs. And we're going to miss them, but we get to keep them around for a while. And so for the next few months, as they continue to play for us, I invite you to continue to celebrate them and write them a note, send them a check, call them on the phone. Let's do whatever we can to let them know how much they have given life to this church, how much they've given life to every single one of us. As we celebrate Easter, we celebrate them as well for the life they are and the life they continue to be. Let's celebrate together.
Morning has woken like the first morning. Blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for them singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing fresh from the word. Sweet the rain's new fall, sunlit from heaven, like the first dew fall on the first grass. Praise for the Mine is the sunlight, mine is the morning, born of the one light, Eden saw play. Praise with elation, praise every morning, God's recreation of the new day. Morning has broken like the first morning, blackbird has spoken like the first bird. Praise for them singing, praise for the morning, praise for them springing, fresh from the word.
Call to Awareness, Easter Exalted by James Brown. Shake out your qualms, shake up your dreams, deepen your roots, extend your branches. Trust deep water and head for the open, even if your vision shipwrecks you. Quit your addiction to sneer and complain. Open a lookout, dance on a brink, run with your wildfire. You are closer to glory, leaping an abyss, than upholstering a rut. No dawdling, no doubting, intrepid all the way towards clarity. At every crossroad, be prepared to bump into wonder. Only love prevails. En route to disaster, insist on canticles. Lift your ineffable out of the mundane. Nothing perishes, nothing survives. Everything transforms.
Faith, trust, love. Love can move mountains. There ain't a dream that don't have a chance to come true now. It just takes a little faith. Anything that we want to do, we can do now. There ain't nothing in our way, nothing our love couldn't rise above. We can get to the night, we can get to the light, long as we got our love to light the way. With a little faith, just a little trust, if you believe in love. Love can move mountains, believe in your heart, feel it in your soul, and love can move mountains. Oceans deep and mountains high, they can't stop us, because love is on our side. We can reach the heavens and touch the sky. Just believe it, you and I. If we got love that is strong enough, we can do anything, make it through anything. 'Cause through it all, love will always find a way. With a little faith, just a little trust, if you believe in love. Love can move mountains, believe in your heart and feel it in your soul, and love can move mountains. You believe in me, I believe in you. We believe in each other, nothing we can't do. If we got love that is strong enough, they'll find a way. With a little faith, just a little trust, if you believe in love. Love can move mountains, believe in your heart and feel it in your soul and love. Love can move mountains. Just love can move mountains. Just love can move mountains.
Good morning, boys and girls. Welcome to Easter here at St. Francis. It is good to have you with me. It is an important day. It's a day that we celebrate new life. And throughout this whole pre-Easter season, which is called Lent, Mike and Nancy have been reading a book for you called The Other Way to Listen. I hope you've enjoyed that book. And they kind of took it slow through that book, and they took 6 weeks to be able to read it to you, because listening takes some time. It takes some patience. It takes some time of sitting and waiting. And you saw how the girl in the story didn't get to hear it all at once, because sometimes hearing the singing that comes from the ground or from the plants or from the canyons doesn't come right away. So we have to have patience and imagination. But I have to tell you that the people here at St. Francis have been really good people who listen really, really well. And they're here to be able to help you as you try to listen to those deeper sounds, those stronger voices of God in the world. And there's a lot of other voices that get in the way. But like this story, know that you have people who will help you on the journey. And she said in the book, she said, of course, they're singing, talking about the rocks. Of course, their singing isn't loud. It isn't any sound you can explain. It isn't made with words. You couldn't write it down. All I can say is it came straight up from those dark, shiny lava rocks, humming. It moved around like the wind. It seemed to be the oldest sound in the world. When we're trying to listen to God, that's what we're trying to do. What are the oldest sounds? What are the deepest sounds? The most important sounds? The drum beat, we might call it. The drum beat, the heartbeat of the world. What is it that's there underneath everything and is calling to us? We here at St. Francis need you to listen to that sound, because we need to hear how you hear it. We need to know what it is that you hear for the future of this church, for the future of this world. So boys and girls, when we ask you to listen, know that that is some of the most important work you will ever do, because in it we hear what life needs to be. Thank you, boys and girls. It's so good to see you. Come and join us next week. Bye-bye now.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine all the time. Let it shine. little light of mine. I'm gonna let it shine all the time. Let it shine, let it shine all the time. Let it shine, 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 shine.
You know, when it comes to things like Easter, I've learned that there's a lot of different ways to understand it. A lot of different nuances of how we hear that word Easter or how we understand this day. In fact, some of my friends have begun, instead of using the word Easter, they've begun to say Resurrection Sunday. And some of them say it pretty vehemently like it's the only right answer. And we think we have right answers all the time. But the reality is those nuances are important because, like what I said with the children, sometimes we need each other to hear and listen differently. I need you to tell me what the rocks are saying, and I'll tell you how the canyons speak to me. It's not a competition. God is singing continually, and our voices join together into a chorus, or might I speak it a different way? If God is the white light that shines into the world and it hits a prism, then what comes out are the different hues of a rainbow. And each of us need to be one of those hues, not all of them. And maybe your green can tell me how my yellow works better. Or maybe the color that you are, the red or the orange, will enhance the blue or the purple that I am. And all of that brings us into a mighty chorus of color and light and music. Thank you, St. Francis, for recognizing that. Thank you for knowing that it's not a singular answer we look for, but something much, much better. I saw that yesterday was the 3rd day of April 2021, which means if we just write it in numbers, the number was 4, 3, 2, 1. Today is 0. 0, the day when things happen. What will happen with us in this moment when we discover new life once again? Thank you for all you do to make this type of day, this type of year, magnificent.
Although we know there's much together, the heat of the hospital comes together. Ashira, 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 Ashira,
Happy Easter, St. Francis. It's good to be with you this morning and to be praying with you from the center here. So I invite you to join your hearts together in prayer and let the Spirit move between us and through us and connect us on this momentous day. So ground yourself, feel your feet on the floor. If you're sitting, feel the chair or whatever you're sitting on beneath you or behind you. And rest in that and just feel grounded and concentrate on your breath. Breathe into yourself and your being the Spirit of God. And let us gather our hearts together in prayer. Keep your proclamations of grandeur. Give me an Easter as small as a seed, one that can be planted while it's still cold outside, one that can be watered with tears and demands time and patience to grow. I don't need to know how large it will become, how long until it blossoms, or even if it will be pretty. I only want it to grow roots that dig deep down, striving for life in the underbelly of the world. Spare me the cosmic promises of otherworldly escape, and point me to the sacred possibilities within reach. Tell me again how the nutrients born from decay keep even the saddest places brimming with potential for life. Mother of us all, give us a glimpse of your hopes for us. For you are in perpetual labor, constantly pushing, seeking to bear new life in us, despite us, among us. You carry us in your depths. You nurture us by your own body. You groan through the pain of birthing new possibilities, without promise of what they will become. Help us to see the potential, that keeps you pushing day after day? What keeps you so hopeful about us that you choose not to stop even when we deny where we come from, in what image we are made, or the capabilities we possess? Do you pray for us as you push? One day, maybe it could be today. Make it be today that they will live into these possibilities for new life to thrive. Thanks be, Mothering One, for your strength, for your hope, for your everlasting love. Amen.
Listen to the light from within. Listen to the light from within. Listen to the light from within. Listen, God is singing. God is singing. Listen to the light from within. Listen to the light from within. Listen to the light from within. Listen, God is singing. God is singing. Listen to the light from within. Listen to the light from within. Listen to the light from within. Listen, God is singing. God is singing.
Good morning. The reading this morning is the Gospel of Thomas from chapter 22. Jesus saw some babies nursing. He said to his disciples, "These nursing babies are like those who enter the place of God." They said to him, "Then shall we enter the place of God as babies?" Jesus said to them, "When you make the two into one, and when you make the inner like the outer, and the outer like the inner, and the upper like the lower, when you make male and female into a single one, so that the male will not be male, nor the female be female, when you make eyes in the place of an eye, a hand in place of a hand, a foot in place of a foot, an image in place of an image, then you will enter the place of God." Here ends the reading.
So I want to start off today by showing you a meme. It is from that book that I've been showing you pictures from, the one about the boy and the horse and the mole. And it says this: "What is that over there?" And the mole says, "It's the wild. Do not fear it." But you know as well as I do that we easily do fear the wild, don't we? The uncontrolled, the different from me, the challenging. We often do fear the wild, especially in each other, because that wild can wear us out over time. It can leave us hurt and wanting. But that's because, I believe, we listen only with our ears instead of with our hearts and with our spirits. But Easter, this day we celebrate today, is about welcoming the voice of the wild and listening as the trio sang to us to the light from within, the bigger voice, the more voice, in us and in that other person. That deeper, richer voice of truth and meaning in the midst of everything to which we can listen to so easily. That voice from within can be hard to perceive, let alone hear with any comprehension. For it doesn't easily fit the other messages around us. It can be confusing as we try to hear it in the midst of those other voices. And it can be extremely confusing if, as I said, we only listen with our ears. I hope you've enjoyed the last few weeks as we've been looking at Thomas, listening to Thomas, but I hope you've also been challenged because Thomas's words aren't the easy words we're used to, aren't the words that we've come to give a definition to already. They are ones that speak outside of our norms and draw us beyond ourselves. This passage from Thomas talks about babies nursing. And Jesus says they are like those who enter the place of God. And his disciples, as disciples often do, don't completely understand. Maybe they're more like us than what we want to admit. And they say, well, then shall we enter the place of God as babies? You can hear the disciples going, what? What do you mean, Jesus? And that especially is important as we look at it through the lens of history where we've put doctrines like original sin on who babies are. But Ron Miller, in his book, The Gospel of Thomas, a guidebook for spiritual practice, says that this passage is trying to portray the Eden consciousness, that innocent place of being with God and living with God. And he says they didn't understand, that those babies didn't understand their reality as different from mom, that mom being there, nurturing, caring, loving, taking care of, giving sustenance and warmth was them. And they understood their connection and the not two-ness, but oneness of who they were. And Ron Miller says, how like the great mystics and saints. And he goes on to say that being childish is what characterizes the spiritually mature. But Thomas didn't stop there, and as he goes on in this passage, he gets even more confusing about what brings life. And he goes on and says, when you make two into one, and the inner like the outer like the inner, the upper like the lower, and the lower like the upper, and male and female into one, then you shall enter the place of God. But Miller said that the key passage is one particular line, where he says, when you make the image in place of an image. And I think that particularly helps that line that I just said about men and women into one, because men have often used that to suppress women. They say, quit being like that, be more like me. And Miller talks about how the men and women have become often in our dialogue competitors, and that we only give certain roles to each other. And he particularly talks about how we need to stop saying just as, right? The word just whatever. For example, people who say George Floyd is just a drug addict, so I don't have to care about him. Asian American and Pacific Islanders are just the ones who brought COVID. So we've justified that in this past year, 1 in 10, in every 10 Asian Americans has been the victim of violence just this year. Or how about the ways we have, using passages like this, marginalized women in the church, in a church whose usual definition isn't a good one for women? Or are we able to dream better? Are women just anything? There is no just about the women in my life, about the black Americans, about the Asian Americans. No matter how many times we try to draw lines and limits and bring them down to only one image, they are always much larger than that. And yet, the words that are spoken in our creation story are huge. That we are all created in the image of God, not just me, but everyone around me, the image of God. And together we speak the whole of that image of life of God. For me, the key line is the line that says, not just a singular I, but we have to replace it with eyes, where we see not just with the one place where we already have truth, but we replace it to where we see larger, deeper, bigger truth, multiple ways of seeing and understanding, and maybe most importantly, relating to the people around us, loving the people around us, because that singular I often draws walls and says no more. You're just this. But that larger I says something much grander. Helps us each to love them more into life and be loved by them into life, even if who they are is not currently how we view life. Easter, and especially that poem that Wynne started with, that Easter Exultet, tells us to move beyond. Doesn't let us just sit in that space of wherever we're at, wherever that space has been and meant to us. It tells us to shake out our qualms and shake up our dreams and trust deep water. Head for the open. Dance on a brink and run with your wildfire. And remember that nothing perishes, nothing survives, everything transforms. And are we willing in this Easter after such a difficult, challenging year, are we ready to let ourselves be transformed? But that means that something might need to fall away. I want to show you a picture that I put on my Facebook page. Several of you noticed that. This is Jim about 30 years ago. In one of my last years in a small community known as Round Valley. And it was the year of one of my most important Easters, an Easter that changed everything. But it was only one step on the road of new life. And if I'd stayed in that space, there's so much I wouldn't have known, wouldn't have been, wouldn't have become. And those kids you see around me, they are now in their mid-30s. They are growing up, and that is good. We want to, and as I look at that picture, I see the kids that I knew, and I hold them dear, but they needed to be more than just that first grader they were. Because as cute as they are in this picture, it would have been a crime to keep them as only that. And in their mid-30s, they are surpassing everything that I could have imagined for them in so many ways. As they listen to that voice of God, bringing new life, new hope, new possibilities to them. But see, that's how life works. That's how new life works. It is always the uncontrollable, the wild, no matter how much we try to tame it. The city of Mesa did a remarkable thing this year. They passed an ordinance in the beginning of March, which was a non-discrimination ordinance. Now, Mesa's not known for being the most progressive, but this is a really good ordinance that opens up and how everyone is going to be accepted and welcome there. And this week, suddenly there was information that they had gotten more than 10,000 signatures to be able to repeal that, or at least to bring it to a vote. You see, in the midst of change, people still try to hold on to, too easily try to hold on to what has been. And maybe there's no place where that's been more readily apparent this last couple of weeks than in the state of Georgia, where they've tried to say, let's stop progress, let's stop empowerment. Let's stop people becoming and having a voice. But I saw a great quote this week by Asha Rangappa, who said, to recap, the same people who deny that systemic racism exists are literally passing laws by their own admission to prevent black people from voting. How easily we become the roadblock to new life, but how easily can we become that which changes things. I love this cartoon where it says, let's get in good trouble and bring water to those who are standing in line, right? They might try to deny us. They might try to make it against the law, but we get to choose whether we listen to that or whether we do what is most important. I love what comedian George Wallace said about that. I'll bring voters all the damn water I want. I'm going to have a card out there like a mother-fletching flight attendant. Mineral water, spring water, smart water, vitamin water, holy water, muddy waters, all the waters. Jim Crow can kiss. We'll just stop there. We need to be brave in speaking this new life and acting out this new life because this world needs that new life. But the question is, are we ready in this moment to embrace it, whatever it may be? Are we ready to speak it into the lives of those around us? Chris and Lisa got on a plane. Here's a picture of them. And it was a plane where there was a lot of turbulence at first, and you know what you do there. Chris said you close your eyes, collapse into yourself, and get really quiet. But in the midst of that inward focusing, suddenly a voice spoke up. And it's the voice of the boy you see over in the window seat. And he said, I need you to talk to me right now. I have terrible anxiety, and this is my first time to ever fly alone, and this turbulence is messing with me. I need you to talk to me right now. And so we started talking. You see, in the midst of new life, it's not just me I get to think about. I have to be open to that person around me who is calling out and saying, I need you to be new life for me. For this power of this Easter day is not just about transforming us, but about helping us to transform the world, to hear the voice of new life, but then to speak that voice around us. The deepest, truest meaning of Easter is not what happened on a cross or in a tomb long ago, but in how I allow it to speak new life to me right now, and how I allow it to help me speak new life to you. Death is the place where we allow ourselves to see life anew, because our old definitions of life have been shattered. The picture I showed you earlier of school teacher Jim was a man going through the most devastating year of his life. But it was also the best, because in the midst of that year, people spoke new life to me. And when I hit Easter that year, it was glorious, because suddenly I was hearing with new ears and seeing with new eyes and loving with a different heart because of the people who brought new life to me. There's a reason why Christians placed Easter where it is, because it proclaims that life is more than what we see and what we don't see. Early spring will still show too much of winter, but Easter says that's not the only story, that something's coming out of the ground, that something's changing in the atmosphere, that something is going on that's going to mean everything to the world. Early spring says one message, but Easter proclaims the change. And we all know, as the song says, in the bud there is a flower, in the seed an apple tree, in cocoons a hidden promise, butterflies will soon be free. We have to sing that song of something more, not just the hiddenness of the cocoon, but what will happen as it opens, not just what appears to be unliving seed, but the plant that will emerge in us and in the people around us. New life is not a certainty that we understand perfectly, but it is a promise that we whisper into each other's hearts, so that little by little, moment by moment, day by day, we live into the possibility it proclaims and become the very promise whispered into those lives. Bruce Sterling said, "When you can't imagine how things are going to change, that doesn't mean that nothing will change. It means that things will change in ways that are unimaginable." And I need unimaginable change after this year. There's been so much that's been revealed to us that isn't good, isn't right, isn't what we need. We need to become. What a marvelous day Easter can be, for it proclaims that we can become all of that we ought to become all that we must, that this world needs us to do that. And so we should, as this last meme says, speak out and say, "Dear universe, feel free to amaze me." Amen. "Happy Easter," proclaimed Jesus to his disciples, and the disciples looked and said, "Yeah, I'm not sure yet." And yet he gave them this to tell them that it was true. That in the midst of what would feel like death, what would feel like the ending of something, we would see that he was not gone. We would see that he was always present, and that it was just the beginning of what could be. And so he gave us this symbol of life, the bread of life. And he said, "Eat this and bring in life into yourself. Drink this, the cup of life, and bring that life into yourself, and then go and be that life for the world." And those disciples, those hesitant disciples, looked at him skeptically, but they reached out their hands and they took that bread of life and they took that cup of life and they became life. Amen.
On the world over, so easy to see. People everywhere just wanna be free. Listen, please, listen, that's the way it should be. There's peace in the valley, people got to be free. You should see what a lovely, lovely world this would be. If everyone learned to live together. Seems to me such an easy thing should be. Why can't you and me learn to love one another? All the world over, so easy to see. People everywhere just wanna be free. I can't understand, it's so simple to me. People everywhere just gotta be free. If there's a man who is down and needs a helping hand, all it takes is you to understand now and pull them through. Seems to me we gotta solve it individually. I'll do unto you what you do to me. Hear the shouting from the mountains on out to the sea. No two ways about it, people have to be free. As
For our benediction today, I'd like to read you a poem by Eric Toso. It says, I stand on the brink, looking over, how I've scrambled up the incline to stop now with bloodied knees on the brink. These dizzying heights offer no refuge, but the naked ruthlessness of honesty. Heartstrings plucked and stirred in desperation for harmony. I stand on the brink, tempted to turn back to an impossible past, while knowing I can choose only one direction. I stand on the brink, leaning forward, out of the lonely feint of resistance and the relentless tug of gravity, pitching forward, oh, so gently, knees dip and lightly lunge into an arc born of eternal practice and instinct, into the awkward terror of first flight. Amen.
Hallelujah.